All right, let's dive into a truly game-changing moment in India's history, the Green Revolution. I mean, this is a story of incredible ambition, amazing science, and a legacy that is way more complicated than you might think. So let's break down how this massive transformation really happened.
So, here's the big question we're tackling today. How on earth did India solve its massive food crisis? And maybe just as important, what was the hidden price of that incredible victory? Because believe me, there was one.
To really get why the Green Revolution was such a big deal, you have to understand the problem they were facing. We're talking about a brand new country, a massive and growing population, and just chronic, terrifying food shortages. The situation was absolutely desperate. The goal, on paper, was simple, but in reality it was absolutely massive. Achieve food self-sufficiency. And the key thing to get here is that this wasn't just about survival, it was about national pride. It was about ending the dependence on other countries for food and finally being able to feed its own people.
So, this wasn't some small temporary fix. Nope, India went all in with a very deliberate, very scientific, and multi-part plan to totally transform its agriculture from the ground up. This was the blueprint for a whole new era.
And just look at these objectives, they were huge. It wasn't just about growing more food. It was about modernizing the whole system, shifting from old-school farming to scientific methods, building up national food reserves, and, this is a big one, trying to actually raise the incomes of farmers. It was incredibly ambitious stuff. Okay, so how are they actually going to pull this off? Well, the answer wasn't just about new laws or policies, it was about bringing a full-blown technological revolution right into the fields.
And this is where you can see the whole system laid out. It all started with these so-called miracle seeds. But those seeds were needy. They needed a whole support structure to actually work. Tons of chemical fertilizers, way more irrigation, new machines like tractors and pumps, and, this is critical, government support through loans and guaranteed prices. It was a complete package deal. And right at the heart of it all were these high-yielding variety seeds, or HYVs. We're talking about new strains of wheat and rice, like Lerma Rojo and IR8, that could just pump out so much more grain per acre than the traditional kinds. This was the engine that kicked the whole thing off.
So there's no question. The revolution totally worked when it came to boosting food production. But like a lot of big stories, this one has a flip side. The benefits were not shared equally, not by a long shot, and it created brand new divisions. Let's see how that played out.
I mean, just look at this map. It tells you so much of the story right there. You can literally see the winners in green, places with good water and resources like Punjab and Haryana. They became the breadbaskets of the nation. But then you see all that yellow. Those were the regions that got left behind, creating this huge imbalance across the country.
And that gap wasn't just about where you lived. It was also about how much money you had. This new technology, it was expensive. So large farmers who could afford the new seeds, the fertilizer, the tractors, they got richer, a lot richer. But the small farmers, they often just couldn't keep up, and the gap between the rich and poor in rural areas just got wide.
So we have these social costs, but there was an even bigger bill that was about to come due. The very same intense farming methods that produced all that food began to take a really heavy toll on the environment itself. And let's be super clear here. On its main goal, it was a home run, a stunning success. India achieved food security and built up enough grain to prevent famines.
But that success came at a cost. The heavy, constant use of chemical fertilizers year after year started to degrade the soil. It was like stripping it of its natural nutrients, leading to a long-term decline in fertility.
And if the soil problem wasn't enough, then there was the water. Oh, the water. These new super productive crops were incredibly thirsty, and to keep them growing, farmers started pumping massive amounts of groundwater, leading to a catastrophic drop in water tables in a lot of these key areas.
So, if we pull it all together, you've got these major issues popping up. You have the environmental damage to the soil and water, you've got the social problem of growing inequality, and then there's a huge agricultural issue. The intense focus on wheat and rice meant that a lot of traditional, often more nutritious crops like millets and pulses were basically ignored.
So, when we step back and look at the whole picture, what's the final verdict here? Well, it's really a story of massive trade-offs.
This line from our source material just hits the nail on the head. Food security with environmental and social costs. That's the story in a nutshell. India achieved this absolutely vital, monumental goal, but it came with this complicated legacy of serious environmental and social problems that the country is still wrestling with today. And that leaves us with a really critical question for our own time, doesn't it? As we all face global challenges of food security and climate change, the Green Revolution serves as both an inspiration and a powerful cautionary tale. It shows us what's possible, for sure, but it also forces us to ask, how can we achieve progress without paying such a high price?